weird. I've never seen that preview come up. Oh my God, I'm thrown off to you. Hello. Rough start here to Maturity Rules. Welcome to Maturity Rules. This is season 1, episode 14, a podcast about Mizzou Athletics Majority, which is Olympic sports athletes. We have some of the gang here. One will join us later. Another one, Rory, is feeling under the weather, probably as a result of sitting with Matthew and I during this press conference. We literally made her sick. So we will provide her updates later on. Matthew, you okay over there?
I was just saying, it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Oh,
We're
It wasn't me. All right.
wellness free in the roommate's house for once. We've made it through.
I mean, he's not sick, so I'm just saying.
I am your host, Karen Steger. Nice to see everyone. I'm the softball, gymnastics, sometimes swim beat writer and Olympic sports manager at rockmnation.com. Down at the bottom of the screen is...
Hi, I'm Abigail. I'm the distance program beat reporter, and right now I'm covering cross country, and I will transition into track and field in the spring.
Yay! And up above.
So one half of the roommates gang, I am Dylan Heinrich. I am the soccer and women's basketball beat writer here for Rock M. So very much fully transitioned into women's basketball. Got a bunch of updates as they finally started their season. So excited to talk some ball.
Excited? Not the word I would have used. Not the word I would have used, but
I like how we both said that at the same time. Are we excited?
Make it a tab. I've got thoughts to make that. But anyways, I am Matthew Gustafson. I am the volleyball and wrestling beat writer and baseball, which actually had an article for baseball come out today. That was fun. Beat writer. Part-time baseball beat writer, for Rock M Nation. And I will have to find a way to be in two places or cover two things at once on Friday, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah, but you know what? You can do it. I have faith in your skills as a magician.
Well, I appreciate that somebody has faith in my skills as
Matthew
a
the
magician.
magician. Put it on the t-shirt, folks.
But we will get to that
T-shirt
shortly. So, Abigail is on a quick timeline today, so let's keep it going. So in-season sports, we're going to start with Abigail with some cross-country updates. Woo!
We have the Midwest Regional happening on Friday. It's going to be hosted by Bradley, so it'll be in Illinois. And this is it, guys. You either qualify for the national championships or you hang up your cleats and rest until the track and field season. So that's all. And I thought I would take a moment to kind of explain what the outlook is for Missouri heading into the Midwest Regional. Both teams are likely not going to qualify. That's just not probable. Or possible in the women's case, probably. However, I do think there's an opportunity for a couple individual runners maybe to qualify and for Rahel Bermel to likely qualify. Here's how that would look. So according to the USTFCCA, my favorite site, the first 4 regional finishers not from an automatic qualifying or at-large team will secure an auto bid to the championship. That means top 2 teams, everyone qualifies, next 4 out qualify. So it's kind of weird in that you're actually rooting for as many of the top 2 teams runners to finish within the top 15. You want them to take up as many spots as possible because it opens up and deepens the field for the next 4 to qualify.
Oh.
So the good news is only one auto bid individual qualifier from the women's field returns to the Midwest region. The bad and realistic news is that doesn't matter at all because there are so many runners ready and available to take their places. Thankfully, last season, 8 of the top 15 finishers were from Iowa State and OSU. Again, that's good for Rahel Bermel if she's looking to qualify individually. She's the only Tiger who raced at the national championship last season, but she wasn't in black and gold. She was for Arkansas State. So I know Dylan and Matthew love numbers. I thought I would break this down. Here are the 3 big numbers to think about heading into the Midwest Regional. I'm not gonna be able to look at y'all while we're doing this. Okay, number 1. Number 4, the men's team is ranked 4th in the Midwest region heading into Friday. They've been sitting at lucky number 3 all season long. However, Tulsa surpassed them after losing the ACC title in a tiebreaker to Tulane. I'm not really concerned. I still think Mizzou has the leverage here. They've been top 3 all season. I think top 3 is probable. 4 would be right where you want to be. You're not going to qualify either way, but still you're finishing top 3 or 4 in a conference that has number 1 and number 4 team in the nation. So it's highly competitive. There's no Midwest nice happening in cross country. Okay, number 4 is the first number. Number 5 is the next number. 5 is the 5 years ago was the last time an individual Tiger qualified for the NCAA championships. That was Thomas George in 2019. The last woman to qualify was the Mizzou Female Athlete of the Decade. You might know her, Carissa Schweizer. She qualified in 2017.
Olympian
Carissa Schweizer. Nike-sponsored athlete, Carissa Schweizer.
Yes.
Also, Iowan Carissa Schweizer. So super cool person all around. Finally, here's the biggest number, 20. 20 minutes to break in the 6K. Based on my behind the numbers type calculations, that is going to be the time that Rahel needs to break in order to qualify or at least be in the conversation. So right now, Minnesota and Oklahoma State University lead the Midwest region for the women. So all of their runners, should they place first and second, are going to qualify anyway. Outside of them, there are only 5 runners within the top 10 teams, including Rahel, who've broken 20 minutes in the 6K this season at all. So there is a huge cliff. 20 minutes is it's a earth-shattering cliff. And actually, Rahel was the first individual Missouri woman to do so since 2020. So it's a massive breakthrough for her. There's a 6th runner who's super close. Again, the number we're looking for to qualify is 4. If you get faster than 20 minutes on a course that not a lot of people have broken 20 minutes on, the most competitive team who's raced on Peoria's course this season has been Northwestern, and not very many of them broke 20. So I think that's kind of the only comp that I've looked at across all the courses in the field. I think if she does that, she puts herself in a competitive place to place.
Sounds good. When does that get started?
Friday morning.
Oh my gosh, so soon. I know that you have been working on writing and then rewriting and then waiting to maybe talk to some people and then rewriting some more.
Ever evolving story, but those are the numbers that have been in the story. So there you go. You get basically a sneak peek into the methodology. I'd love to do some athlete features. They're incredibly busy and they got to take care of themselves and their well-being. So I'm hoping the nice thing is the cross country, the season is goes by so incredibly quickly. Then they have a little bit of an off-season break before track season. So you know what? Maybe it'll come after the Midwest region.
Yeah, maybe you can get like a wrap-up ish sort of thing with them.
We'll put something together. But that's the goal. I know they're traveling to Illinois today, so they probably already arrived there. It's not an incredibly fast course, but I don't think that's going to matter. Usually at a Midwest qualifying regional, it's going to be fast regardless. So yeah, normally I'm not cheering for OSU, but I will be on Friday.
Go OSU! In this one instance, it's okay. Cool. Thank you, Abigail. Awesome. Let's slide over to our favorite queens of the court, the volleyball team. Whoop, whoop. And Matthew.
The ranked volleyball team, nationally ranked.
Yes,
AVCA
the nationally ranked the wrongly, but still ranked volleyball team.
So, as most of you probably know by now, Mizzou Volleyball, pretty good, right? Pretty good. They're on a 9-game win streak. They are currently 18-5. And for the first time in the Dawn Sullivan era, for the first time since the end of the 2020-21 season, Mizzou Volleyball is in the top 25. Now they are exactly 25th. and they are far lower than their RPI. Mizzou is currently 17th in the RPI. That is, in fact, the largest difference in a negative way between a team's RPI and their ranking, the top 25 of any top 25 team. That's a difference of 8 from 17 to 25. The next closest
for that math.
The next closest are 6, which is BYU and Utah. So there's a gap of 2 between them, which is pretty big in terms of that. And then you have teams which have a bigger gap, but where it benefits them, where like Minnesota is, I think, 16th, something like that, in the AVCA poll, and they're 31st in the RPI. So it's a gap that benefits them. But nevertheless, Mizzou Volleyball goes 2-0 during the week with wins over Georgia and South Carolina. They get the sweep over South Carolina, which kind of felt like it could be a trap game. South Carolina has some really quality wins this season, including over recent top 25 team North Carolina. They swept Florida. They also have wins over Tennessee in the SEC as well. But Mizzou not having many issues with containing them. They win the first set 25-23, and then they go 25-13, 25-18 in the final 2 sets to get that 3-0 sweep, hitting 351. 351 for the Tigers compared to 123 for South Carolina. Mizzou had 11 blocks in this match, by far the most they have had this season, led by middle blocker Colleen Finney, who had one of the better individual performances we've seen from a player on this team in 2024.
She was everywhere. I felt like they were announcing her name constantly, and she has like the greatest expressions ever.
545 hitting percentage and 6 blocks. On the offensive side, Michael Vernon had 14 kills, hitting 324 to go with 8 digs and 2 blocks. And Janet Demaray, very impressive match for her. She hit 346 with 12 kills, only 3 attack errors. She usually has been pretty error prone on the attack this season. She'll hit into the block lot. That is something that we have seen less and less from her these past couple of weeks. And this was probably the best that she has looked this entire season. Very encouraging. It looks like she is kind of developing in real time, and we are seeing that improvement. So I'm definitely going to be very interested to see how she does this Friday. But why don't we talk about it? One of the biggest matches of this season so far. Mizzou taking on number 21 Florida. It's going to be in Columbia on Friday night. Mizzou had over 3,800 fans at their match against South Carolina. There has been a lot of talk about getting fans out to to the Hearnes Center, for this matchup. And it is going to be 2 electric offenses. These are 2 of the 10 or 15 best offenses in the country, the 2 best offenses in the SEC, the 2 best serving teams in the SEC, the only 2 teams in the SEC with a hitting percentage above 300. It is going to be an offensive showdown. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this team does on the defensive end, because Mizzou currently, they had a lot of issues, right? Non-conference in terms of allowing hitting percentage. The offense, when it got bogged down, couldn't keep up with the defense. That is not the case anymore. This is a transformed team on the defensive end. And in SEC matches, they are 4th in the SEC in a hitting percentage allowed. This team has just completely changed the tide of their season, and it is through defensive improvement. That is why we are seeing the results we have seen during this winning streak, in addition to more consistency from the offense as well as improved serve receive.
Awesome. So you and I were both at the Mega Media Day, we'll call it, today with a bunch of the coaches. And this was, I think, the first time I've listened to Dawn Sullivan talk, I think just in recordings later. She is riveting. And she has the most calming voice. Like, I feel like I could just listen to her read anything. So
She would definitely have a good voice for audiobooks.
yeah.
Yeah.
So soothing. So what are some takeaways you had from what she had to say during this media presence that you can share with the masses?
So a couple of interesting things that we noticed as Quentin Corpiel joins us.
Hi.
Welcome to the show, Quentin. We're talking Mizzou Volleyball right now. And media
Fun thing to talk about nowadays, I hear.
Yes.
It is. It really is.
I guess you could say it's really bumping.
I should have known. It took me about
You're
11
killing it.
11 seconds
Hey,
to make a joke.
It's a party.
Oh,
a block
killing it was
party.
good. I just got that.
Sorry, Matthew,
Sorry,
you were
you
saying.
But anyways, some of the key takeaways, really just they continue to emphasize right pack the Hearnes on Friday. That's a message you've seen from pretty much any coach at Mizzou who's been in front of a microphone in the past week. They've basically all mentioned it. This was Sullivan's opportunity to do so. And it was as she was leaving, it was basically once reporters had finished up asking questions where she said, oh, if I can say one more thing, and then said, our fans rock, how important they are to the team's success, and then emphasized packing Hearnes. Some other things that we noticed were talked about the top 25 ranking, right? And really excited. She was really excited for, about that for her team, but, said at the end of the day, it's just a number, which honestly is really true. The AVCA does not have, their rankings do not have, I think, as much of a predictive power when it comes to how the selection committee will seed things as RPI does. RPI is probably more reflective of where this team is at. I think that they are much closer to being a 5 seed than they are a 7 seed. I think that they're probably around that 5-6 line right now more than they are that 6-7 line. And if they continue to win, inching closer and closer to potentially hosting a regional. But the other interesting thing that I heard was she was talking about Michael Vernon and said that they had actually talked to her last offseason where Vernon temporarily entered the portal. She ended up deciding to withdraw, go back to Oregon State for one more year. But they had that, relationship previously. So they were able to make it come together pretty quickly, and they immediately identified her as somebody they wanted to go after in the portal once they saw that she was available. And that's information we didn't really know about Vernon, having a prior relationship with the coaching staff.
That was really helpful for her to say that. I was glad that somebody had asked about her kind of transfer process, I guess. So that was cool information. Thank you, Matthew. Would you like to mention now how you need to be a magician on Friday?
Are we talking about wrestling?
Well, I mean, you can say what the problem's going to be, and then you can give the updates later.
Okay. Well, Mizzou Volleyball with one of their, like I said, biggest matches of the year on Friday against Florida in Columbia. At the same time, Mizzou Wrestling with a very big early season non-con matchup with fellow top 10 team Virginia Tech in Blacksburg.
I don't know how he's going to do it, but Matthew is always a professional, and I'm sure he'll figure out a way to commentate on the match while also telling us what's going on the wrestling mats. He'll figure it out. I have no doubt. And I'd say, Dylan could help, but Dylan will also be indisposed on Friday. And you guys don't want my volleyball commentary. I know nothing other than, kill, spike it, do it. Yes. The
They
end.
actually don't really use the word spike in college.
I know. I'm sorry, Matthew. See, now you know I'm not prepared for this.
They
have auditioned for it.
generally go with hit or swing.
Oh,
So baseball terminology, basically same thing.
I did finally figure out what a pancake was during Sunday's match. Like I was like, I don't understand this word. What are they talking about? And like one actually happened. I turned to my dad and I was like, was that a pancake? And he was like, yes. And I was like, oh my gosh. I learned so much.
I'm more of a waffle guy myself, but
Oh my gosh.
I had to get one.
Anyway, thank you, Matthew. I may need your help again in a moment. Should I forget any of these swim and dive updates? So, like I said, when we started, Rory is not feeling well. We think it's because she spent too much time with me and Matthew at this press conference and it physically made her ill. Oh, sorry, Matthew's saying it's me. I did it then. He is not to blame for this. It is Karen.
I mean, there were a bunch of other reporters in the room too.
That's true. Or am I just trying to steal her beat? Who knows? Who knows? But anyway, Andrew Grevers was there, head swim and dive coach at Mizzou. He also, like I was saying about John Sullivan, like just a joy to listen to. Like the way he explains swimming, because there are so many people that aren't really familiar with the sport. He just goes out of his way, I feel like, to give really great explanations on what is going on and like took us through the difference in wearing tech suits, which are the suits that go down to the knee, that are made from like fabric that basically repels water. So you feel almost like you're floating on the water when you're wearing them. So he kind of was going through his philosophy on them wearing them. So they have worn them, he said, for every meet this year so far, except for Purdue. He seemed, Matthew can chime in if he doesn't agree with it. He seemed a bit aggrieved. Get it? Grievers.
That is exactly the word that I was going to use.
He seemed a bit aggrieved with the Purdue Boilermakers, who they did lose to in a dual meet, the meet before last. So they had decided, Purdue said that they weren't going to suit up. They weren't going to wear their tech suits. So Mizzou said they also will just wear their regular suits. And the reason why they did that is so you can see how you're doing against competition, like you're comparing apples to apples instead of apples to oranges. So that was the reason why they did it. But then, so Mizzou was in a extremely heavy training period. Like they had maxed out on some of their weights, like the day before or that morning or something like that. Like they were really training through the meet. And then it became very obvious that Purdue had done a little bit of resting before the meet. So they wasn't necessarily on the, it's not that it wasn't fair because it's, you know, you can do whatever you want, but I think that from what I gathered, he seemed a little bit annoyed by the fact that they did not quite come into it the same way that Mizzou did, I guess.
I would say that Purdue Pete does strike me as one of the most untrustworthy mascots in college athletics. Alongside, ironically, the Providence Friar and the Kansas Jayhawk.
Does Matthew, I gotta ask, does the Kansas State half Wildcat, half human also fit into this discussion?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
I don't know about untrustworthy, just like scary, just like a feral being.
Okay.
It's not really a
Yeah.
mascot.
Sure.
It belongs in its own separate category as like
Put it in a
centaur.
cage. Please.
Yeah.
How do we feel about the Stanford Cardinal, the tree?
Love the tree.
Love
Love
it.
the tree.
Halloween
Cool.
costume,
Great.
like not necessarily high quality mascot, but adorable. I would
Yeah, the tree,
Tom would be
like
Syracuse
K-State's
orange,
weird.
like inanimate
Oh, yeah.
objects. And
Yeah,
smiley.
I
Yeah,
like
the tree
Syracuse
takes all of
orange.
our CO2 that we breathe out and then gives us oxygen in return. So that's pretty cool. And I can
The tree gives us life.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out environmentally friendly mascots.
Anyway, so back to swimming. A couple other things that he mentioned. Matthew asked about a lot of season best times that the team has been putting together. And he said they actually had to come up with a different way to kind of celebrate it because so many people were getting season best times. And it actually made me reminisce a little bit about my time as a high school swim coach because I did something similar to what he said. So they have these tags on their bags, bag tags, they call them. So they're basically just like a small little, smaller than an index card. So I guess how he did it is when they get their best times, they give them a new card to put on their bag that has that information on it. And it's just kind of a way to, I say tote around, like I can't even help myself with the with the puns, but it is a way for them to have on their person with their bag to show their progress. And we used to do something like that with my high school swim team. So I was glad to see that, and that was a long time ago. So I was kind of glad to see that that's something that has carried over. And I love the fact that so many of them are improving so much that they need to do this. Yeah. Like he had to figure out a way to honor them and celebrate the good work that they're doing. So the last thing I have is that next week they're heading to Athens for the Georgia Invite, where they will face Florida, Alabama, LSU, and Georgia. So it'll be a SEC meet. It is a multi-day event. I didn't get to ask about this, but USA Swimming doesn't have dual meets. Like all of our meets growing up were all multiple days, which were kind of nice as compared to a dual meet, because a dual meet you're kind of going like go with no rest really, especially if your events are like relatively close together. Whereas this, though I didn't ask him about it, I think we may see some really good times out of them because they will have more rest in between their events because it is a multi-day format. And he said they were going to rest a little bit for the meet, so they would be a bit fresher. As for what he said that they were working on, they were really focusing on the details, starts and turns, finishing, the number of dolphin kicks off the walls, where to attack in their race. So like a race strategy, like Abigail always talks about with cross country. And he said that this is a really nice tune-up to preparation for SECs because SECs are also in Athens. So it's a good competition, very good competition. Florida is like has won the SEC. I don't even know how many times. It's absurd, really. Georgia has previously won SEC and national titles. So it's good teams they're facing. So this will be an excellent tune-up to kind of see where they are at this point in the season. So yay. It was nice to get to talk to him. I know that Dave Matter came over and was concerned that no one was going to ask him any questions. And we're like, no, Dave, we got this. Between me, Rory, and Matthew, we had plenty of questions. So that is all for the swimming updates. Let's head over to women's basketball. Gosh, It's something.
We haven't talked since Norfolk State, huh?
Oh,
That's
no.
Mizzou women's basketball, it's something should be the team's catchphrase for the season.
Sure.
It's something.
I
All
think
right.
Quentin
So
has to come up
Quentin
with a new
Dylan.
word each week to describe it.
Yeah.
Catch the fever.
Is there one? I don't think there's a fever.
I think that one. I think that one. I think that one just makes you sick.
I don't know. I was at that game last night. It made me feel kind of sick.
That's what it is. That's why Rory is sick. Mizzou women's basketball. We figured it out.
She's got the
We
fever.
figured it out.
Yeah, she caught the fever. All right, Quentin and Dylan.
All right.
What do we have to talk
Yeah,
about?
Dylan, you go first because you were actually at Norfolk State and Tulane.
Yeah. So obviously, rough couple games, starting 2-2. Norfolk State came down to the wire, just couldn't find a way to put the ball in the basket, fall behind, and are eventually going to lose. Lost that one, 57-54. Again, on paper was a very back and forth matchup, which again probably shouldn't be in a back and forth matchup with Norfolk State, a tournament team, but still a team in the MEAC, which if you're comparing MEAC and SEC, you're already off to a bad start. Tulane looked like it might have been the same story. We're trailing by, I think it was 7 at the half. Yeah, 7. And it was looking rough, really tough first half, but Missouri kicked it into high gear defensively, just were able to hold the Green Wave to basically no opportunities, forced 26 turnovers throughout the game. A lot of those were Tulane mistakes. I don't want to give complete credit to this Tigers team, but overall, really good defensive performance, especially in the second half. There were some moments you could see Grace Slaughter set a new career high. She's clearly emerged as the number one option on this team. Minutes leader, points leader, just again, that steadfast rock for this squad. I think Lanaya Randall has shown that she's very, very capable, almost a double-double machine, works really well in the post. Coach P called her the best on-ball defender that they have, and it shows. There's some really big bright spots. Avery Kroenke made her first start, and again, was a complete test on the defensive end in all the right ways. Really good passer, didn't commit a lot of turnovers. Well, not really.
Not so much offense, though.
Able to distribute to those who can get the ball, but again, a lot of the offensive questions are still there for this team after 4 games. It's not a pretty 2-2 whatsoever. I think that they beat the teams that they were definitely needed to beat. These other teams finished just outside the top 100 in the RPI. Not great at all, but in terms of devastating losses, like you don't compare this to like Jackson State for the men last year. Not good losses by any means, but not catastrophic cancel the season, in my opinion, unless Q has some different voices he'd like to shout out.
When they were down 7 at the half, I was like, this is catastrophic. Like,
that was a rough half.
Like, no, we can't do this.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Norfolk State was pretty bad. I put it between what you just said and catastrophic. I think that was really disheartening, especially after the performance they put up in Vermont that had Robin Pinchton talking about her team like she had witnessed a murder at the University of Vermont. She told us, she was like, don't even tell me what happened in Vermont. Or like, I didn't even recognize the team that I saw in Vermont. Which, like, I guess in a sense is a little bit fair because it was the first game of the season. It was a long road trip, a lot of new players. At the same time, though, it's not like Vermont was a Florida Gulf Coast kind of mid-major who's incredible every single season and would probably do really well if they were put in a major power conference. I couldn't say the same thing about Vermont. And then you'd think they would bounce back against a, in theory, beatable team. And they put up yet another offensive stinker against Norfolk State, which is kind of weird because on paper, Mizzou has a lot of scoring options. Like Grace Slaughter, yeah, she put up a career high against Tulane with 20 points on, I believe, 8 of 12 shooting. So volume and efficiency, that's good. But then you have games like Vermont where they attempt 7 3-pointers, which is kind of preposterous in the year 2024. And so I thought that would get better against Norfolk State. It didn't. Scoring 54 points is not good in any context, but against a MEAC team, as an SEC team, that shouldn't be happening. And then in the first half against Tulane, who was one of the worst, if not the worst, American Athletic Conference team last season, who already had a loss to Nichols on their resume to start the season. A regular SEC team, that would not even be a contest halfway through the second half. And so just overall, like, I would love for their sake if it got better. That would have to start at Western Illinois on Friday. But for what they've shown these first few games, I really don't have a lot of belief that can happen. And with the team as a whole, it's been a lot of the same issues that have been plaguing them for a really, really long time. The turnovers have been better over the last couple of games, but I'm not sure I'll ever be able to get out of my head an assist-to-turnover ratio of 4-26 against Vermont. Like, that's horrendous. That, I think, landed them in the bottom 10 in the entire country after that game. And then I believe they committed 20 the next game, which is improvement, yes, still not good. I'm usually known for saying that progress comes in all shapes and sizes, but sometimes the shape and the size is still not very good. So I'd like it for it to get better, but early indications prove that is not going to happen.
So what is going on with Ashton Judd, you guys?
I mean, that's the thing. She had a very, very promising freshman year. I'm sure Q can speak to it more than I can because she was here. Sophomore year, you could kind of see more of the cracks forming. The more she had the ball in her hands, the more she was privy to taking bad shots, committing unforced turnovers, a lot of travels last year. And this year, it's an increased role. The ball is in her hands more, and those cracks, they just get larger and larger. Currently, she's averaging just over 4 turnovers a game, just at about 8 points, only shooting 33% from the field, just under 30% from 3. It's just it's inefficiency, bad shots, lots of turnovers, not making good decisions with the ball. You hate to say it, but I think she might serve better just as a spot-up shooter in the corner and less as an offensive creator from what this team needs, because the more that she has the ball in her hands, you hate to say it, but bad things tend to happen, unless Q has a wild disagreement.
He wrote about this sort of thing last year, I think.
Yeah, I did write about this last year. Dylan, I'd actually have to disagree with you a little bit. I think she is effective on the ball. She has shown that she can take somebody off the dribble to the basket and create, if not a bucket, a foul, and the foul is still worth 2 free throws. And so I think she has proven over these first couple of years and some change that she is able to do that. But you're totally right about the problems that she's had, especially last season when she took on a greater scoring role after what you said. Yeah, it was a promising freshman season. Even though she didn't really get a ton of minutes, you could see the vision of what she could potentially be. And like we saw in the Southern game, for example, she's killing it in the first half. She's getting to her spots. She's scoring at all 3 levels. Second half, she goes 0 of 4. All of those shots from 3-point range, and they're not necessarily bad shots. They just don't go in. And then the turnovers have still kind of been an issue. She's thrown a couple of poor post-entry passes, for example, and it's not like they were particularly close. Like, they were fastballs that were way out of the reach of whoever was posting up. And so, unfortunately for her, it seems like the Jekyll and Hyde act has continued. Like, there were times we saw last year, she was piecing up mid-majors throughout the entirety of the game. Against Indiana State, like, she had an ankle breaker. She had a bunch of – that was the game where she shot like 7 of 9 from 3 and scored 30-something points. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, all right. Hey, when Haley Frank leaves at the end of the season, I think Mizzou could be in pretty good hands. And that just hasn't really been the case. One, with Grace Slaughter's emergence as a very clearly good scoring option. But at the same time, you would like to see a lot more consistency out of Ashton Judd, which is something she talked about before the season as wanting to improve. And it's great that she recognized it as something that she was struggling with. But then step 2 is actually putting it into a game, which hasn't quite happened yet.
Yeah.
Karen, can I jump in?
Oh, yeah.
Big women's basketball. Like, I'm the mom of the kid that is, can do well on his tests, but just doesn't want to study. So you see the potential and you're cheering for them and you're like, I want this more than it seems like you want this right now. And I feel like that's how the women's basketball team is just competing. And I completely agree with Quentin. I was here freshman year, sophomore, like watching her develop. I will say, I think she bears the weight of a role that she's not fit for. She is a pace player. She's really good from the mid-range jump shot. She can, as Quentin said, she can force a foul, get her way to the free throw line. Free throws are one of this team's strong, consistent assets. They're consistently a good free throw shooting team. Yet last season, when she started to kind of shift and it seemed like maybe there was a loss of confidence, it seemed like it was because they were pigeonholing her into a role that she is not necessarily like, that she needs support around her. Definitely the shooting inconsistencies is an issue, and she has recognized that last season. I think there is a mental block there as well, but it seems like that mental block amplifies when she tries to carry too much weight of the offense, and that is something that I haven't seen rectified this year yet in the rotation. Like, it worries me to see that echoed in Grace Slaughter a little bit. I love Grace Slaughter. So excited to see the production already out of her from shooting an offensive end. But this team doesn't play well holistically on offense when one player is built to sustain their entire momentum across an entire game. They are better when it is a 5-wide pass offense, drive into the lane, force fouls, force some action, disrupt the defenses. And I think that's where Judd really comes in. But when she's forced to carry a lot of the offensive momentum, she can't translate necessarily.
Yeah.
Well, when you're only scoring like 50-something points, like, she's probably putting an awful lot of pressure on herself to be like, well, nobody else can get a basket. I guess I should try.
I completely agree. And if you're going to drain the entire shot clock and then not get a rebound, you just wasted 25 seconds, stymied the momentum of the offense, and no one gave you another chance for another shot. So I think there's a complexity to it. And I was really quick to criticize her last season. Her consistency still isn't there. I think I'm realizing that perhaps there's more to the story as well with her productivity.
Yeah, Abigail, that's a really, really good point. There are so many possessions still. This is something that was happening last season a lot, where they get to 7 seconds on the shot clock and they have created nothing. And at that point, it's like, or Ashton, please do something really cool. Lanaya Randall, I really hope you have a mismatch inside, because you have to score now, or else there is going to be a shot clock violation. There have just been too many of those possessions, and that hinders everybody, including Ashton Judd, when she has to create something. She's got to bake a cake in 2 minutes. You can't bake a cake in 2 minutes. And I think that really hamstrings the offense too. The last thing I wanted to say about Ashton Judd that I realized I didn't, for as inefficient and as inconsistent as she might be, she's got some pretty darn good resilience. And she is really good at playing by possession by possession. Perfect example, Southern game, second half. She completely airballs a 3-pointer. Inherently a confidence destroyer. She hustles her rear end back on defense and gets a chase down block to save a layup on the other end and prevent a potentially 5-point swing. And so it's little things like that make me appreciate Ashton, even when she is maybe a net negative on offense. I just wish that we didn't even have to get to the point where she has to go and hustle down and make a chase down block to rectify an air ball.
Yeah. So is there any positives so far about the team? Lanaya
Randall, she's, again, I've talked about it briefly, but she's very good inside, very good as a both perimeter and interior defender, can guard some of the biggest guards, can hold her weight with some of the bigs. We'll see how that translates to the SEC, but just as a defender, really, really good, brings an energy to this team that it's basically her Hannah Linthicum and occasionally Avery Cronky are the ones who are really bringing the hype train for this team. Everyone else is pretty steady, which can be good at times, but sometimes when you need that crowd momentum behind you, get the ball to Lanaya. Again, good at drawing fouls. I think another positive for this team is Abby Schreck. Ultimately could not get the win against Norfolk State, but she put on a heck of a fourth quarter performance, hand in her face, again, in both the Norfolk game. Tulane just draining threes, currently shooting 44% from beyond the arc on 6 attempts per game, which you can keep that up. Just a flamethrower off the bench, going to give you good 20 minutes, especially offensively. She worked a lot on the ball last year when her natural position's off the ball. You can kind of see shades of, I would say, Klay Thompson in her game, the way that she can just get the ball, spot up, and shoot with no matter how little space she has. I would say it maybe not.
Quentin's face right now.
Wild cup.
Relax.
Hey, I'm not saying
My
it's
hands
the
in the
little.
frame,
I'm
relax.
saying it's the style. It's the style, Quentin.
Okay.
I'm
I
not
get behind
saying that she is going to be a day one starter on the Golden State Warriors. It's not the claim that I'm making here, Mr. Q.
No Captain Abby?
No, we don't. I don't think we have any sailor hats yet, but I'm sure that we talk about the sailor tiger all the time. It's coming. I think Angie's also starting to come along. Done some really good things on the post on both ends from time to time. A lot of questions about the deep rotation, but I definitely think that Grace Slaughter is on track. Let's not forget she's only a sophomore, so averaging a team leading 14.5 points per game. And so if she can just do consistently what she does every single night, if you really just look at the Norfolk State game with only 5 points as a real head scratcher, but if Grace Slaughter can score double digits in every game, it's going to give you a chance in every single non-conference game and at least make it competitive in SEC play. So again, lost to a couple very solid mid-major teams, by no means teams that are blowing the doors off anybody, but I don't think this is like total panic mode. They haven't lost that one game that really shocked you yet. Western Illinois might be that. They finished last year 300 in the RPI. They've 295, so they're their lowest ranked opponent, currently on a 2-match losing streak against mid-majors on the road. Vermont to open the season, SLU last year, which Q and I were very, very familiar with. So when you look at Friday, it's early in the season, but if you want to re-inspire hope, you got to go on the road, at least win, preferably go do it in double-digit fashion, inspire that the talent on this team is not just on paper, but can be translated to the court in an effective rotational manner.
Yeah.
The rotations have been weird.
Yeah, it's kind of funky.
And Abigail, if you need to go, you can go.
Yeah. We'll touch on this very briefly because we've talked about this team a lot, but it's weird, man. They've got very clearly I would say their top 5 that they like to play minutes in out. Grace, Ashton, Lanaya, Angie, and then Abby Schreck, surprisingly, is in that top 5 despite not starting. She gets a lot of work off the bench. Then you have what I like to call your point guard trio, plus Hannah Linthicum, who are seeing minutes every game. They're hovering right around that 10-minute mark. It's really just like, okay, we've got these 3 point guards. They're all very solid. They all do different things, but there's no one that stands out. So they all just kind of work in and around each other. Hannah's a very solid option off the bench. I know you talked about it off air, Karen, but Delilah Brown looked to be very promising, had a very good exhibition, seen action in only, I believe it's 2 games so far, and none of that was a lot. We're starting to see more from Tiana Heron, who is now in a surprisingly deep center position, kind of getting buried on the depth charts.
She played like 2 minutes yesterday.
Like you said, 2 minutes. Same thing in the Norfolk State game. So it's really just what's Hilka Fedrape's played sparingly. She's in there, but it's really, I feel like this team has found their 9 pretty much for SEC play. I don't really see that changing much. Unfortunately, unless things, like I said, change drastically, I don't see players like Delilah, Tiana, or Hilke being a part of that SEC rotation.
Yeah, I'll add in that I agree with Dylan in that the top line seems to be pretty solidified. We figured before the season that Angie Ngala-Kalandi was going to take over the starting big spot over Hannah Linthicum, which is why we were all pretty surprised that Hannah was starting over her during the scrimmage against Truman State. But sure enough, it's been Angie getting that nod. And she had a really, as Dylan said, a really great game against Tulane. I believe 3 steals, 3 blocks. So that is pretty good on her.
She's
but yeah,
been a pretty efficient shooter too.
Yes. Oh, bye, Abigail. Everybody say bye, Abigail.
Bye, Abigail.
So yeah, her efficiency was also pretty nice. But I'll end my Mizzou basketball through the first few games with one more thing, actually. Norfolk State. Mizzou needs a really good baseline out-of-bounds play. I was yelling a little bit at my phone when they ran the same one 2 or 3 times in a row.
It was like 3.
It was the same one 3 times in a row. And I'm never going to tell a basketball coach how to coach because they devote their life to that, and I do not. Basketball coaches know way more than I or any of us probably will ever know. However, I feel like it's a little bit suboptimal to run the same inbounds play 3 times in a row and not have some sort of backup. And also, I think the possession before that, they ran the same let's get a bucket play that did not work several times last year. The one where somebody would drive on the right side, get to the right block, and try a swing pass to the left corner. And there would be a screener in the left corner trying to free up a shooter for a left corner 3. Didn't work again. So I would maybe like to see in similar situations something a little bit different, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So that was one of the many things I thought after the Norfolk State debacle. And I think if they lose to Western Illinois on Friday, that would be the Jackson State, as Dylan said. That would set off alarm bells that somehow hadn't been set off already, I guess. Robin Pinchton's job security, that's for another day because we've gone pretty long already on here. But I guess my 2 cents on that at the present state is that I wouldn't be surprised if she stays the entire year, no matter what happens, just because if she gets fired midseason, that's a really bad look for Mizzou. Even a lot
Mizzou doesn't do.
Yeah, Mizzou doesn't really do that. And the portal would open. Would open. And you don't really want to do that in the middle of the season. And Robin's on the last year of her contract anyway. So I think the move would probably just be to play it out and find something or someone new over the offseason instead of in the middle of the season.
Laird Veach was there for a little while yesterday. Not looking terribly enthused by what he was witnessing. Also, it was like there was like no one at this game. I know they said that there were like 2,600 people. I can't imagine there were actually that many people there. It was dead. It was dead quiet, and there was like no one there. And yeah, I hope for the best, but
yeah. On that note, I also have to bounce. I also apologize if there are any flashing lights in my face or music in the background. I am currently outside of. Oh, there we go, right there. I am currently outside of, depending on where you're from, Panera Bread / St. Louis Bread Co. My headphones don't connect to my computer, so I just took this conversation outside because I didn't want to be a nuisance to the folks inside. I'm currently sitting on a wet bench because it just rained here in Columbia, and originally I was squatting, but then my legs started hurting, and I was like, all right, do I blow a muscle or a tendon in my leg, or do I get my pants a little bit wet? And I went with the latter, and I think that's proven to be a pretty good long-term decision for yours truly.
Please don't end up sick like Rory.
I'm not in 100% control of that. Every day I'm surrounded by hundreds of kids around my age that could very easily be carrying a lot of different sicknesses.
That's true.
You cover Mizzou women's basketball, which, as we as we logically learned, is the reason for Rory.
Yeah. I'll alert the CDC if it gets worse. So yeah, thanks for having me on. And this was another great episode of Majority Rules. So y'all take care.
Thank you, Quentin. All right, so
then there were 3.
I know, just dropping like flies around here. So I had baseball next on the agenda, but that actually doesn't make sense because that's out of season. So let's go to wrestling and back to Matthew.
All righty. So wrestling this Saturday had their, I believe, 3rd annual Tigerstyle Invite at Staley High School.
Oh my God, I totally forgot that even exists. That happened.
In Kansas City. And the Tigers overall had a pretty solid weekend. They ended up finishing first with 168.5 points. They had 4 wrestlers win at their weight class, those being Josh Edmond, Cam Steed, Keegan O'Toole, and Colton Hawks. O'Toole and Steed once again looked particularly impressive. I really liked what I've seen from Steed so far this year. Similar to O'Toole, he's able to put up a lot of points very quickly, and he's really good at getting a pin. He got, if I saw correctly, a pin in the final of his weight class in less than a minute, which is the second time he has done that this season. He opened the season at Northern Colorado with a pin in something crazy like 38 seconds or something like that, maybe under 30 seconds. But looking at the individual results, the starters at 125 and 197, no certain Rock Elam, continue to be missing from this lineup. Smith said that they're both working back from injuries, maybe another couple of weeks before we see either of them. And 2 freshmen, Gage Walker and Aiden Sinclair, have been starting in their place at 133. Cade Moore continues to struggle at the beginning of this year. They've talked about he's been really dealing with an injury right now as well, which is probably part of the issue, but he actually finished in 4th at 133. He went 2-1. He lost a decision to Zeth Romney of Cal Poly 10-4. You look at Logan Joffrey at 149. He ended up in 2nd. He lost a close 3-1 decision to Chance Lamer of Cal Poly. No shame in that. Lamer's a really good wrestler towards the top of that weight class. But Joffrey has really not been able to find his groove so far this year. Really struggling on offense so far. He ended up...
Was he hurt most of last year?
He was, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he was hurt from the West Virginia match on return in the postseason wasn't the same. But he gets a tech fall in his opening match and then doesn't score more than 3 points in any of his final 3 matches. At 157, James Conway goes 2-2, takes 4th. He ended up he had a solid win, a major decision over Legend Lamer of Cal Poly, who's a ranked wrestler at 157. So that was a really impressive win, but he kind of fizzled out later, lost the decision to Joy Blaze of Purdue, Mandy Bianchi of Little Rock, ends up going 2-2. We talked about Steed O'Toole and Hawks, really solid as well. And the last big guy to talk about, Seth Nissel. He ends up losing in the finals to Seth Nevels of Maryland 5-2 and goes 2-1 for the tournament. So overall, solid. Could have been better, could have been worse, which is really kind of the way I would describe Mizzou wrestling so far. They haven't really impressed that much, but they haven't done anything to make you lose faith in this team. Haven't really done anything that would significantly drop them down the rankings yet. So
what are they ranked right now?
I believe they're ranked around 8th or 9th in the country. Okay. So it's still a top 10 team. And like I said, I think they have a lot of room for growth. They're still dealing with some injuries. We haven't seen them at their full potential yet. So that is something to take into account. But Virginia Tech is going to wrestle them straight up no matter what, right? You know, they're going to go 100% against Mizzou. They're going to look to win. They're not really going to let their foot off the gas just because Mizzou has a couple of guys injured. So that's going to be something to watch on Friday night, is that match in Blacksburg. There's going to be at 6 p.m. It's been a really close match the past couple of years. I think Virginia Tech is going to be the slight favorite and entering into this match. But this has been a really good rivalry. You know, not a traditional rivalry, but just these teams have been really close the past couple of years.
Mhm.
So this has generally been a good indicator of, okay, you know, where's this team at this point in the season? Can they hang with some of these top tier teams?
Awesome. Thank you, Matthew. Anything interesting you want to share from what Coach Smith had to say at the press conference? He is so direct. I enjoy him.
Yeah. First off, I was not aware how much Brian Smith loves pizza. He was like a little bit distracted by the boxes of pizza on the side table that they had set aside for reporters. At one point, he went up to the podium a bit early with the gymnastics head coach, Shannon Welker, and Kira Burns, and then blamed his early move. He was called back by one of the SIDs. He blamed him going up early by being distracted by the pizza. And then also was talking about one of Mizzou's recruits assigned today, Dom Bambinelli, and said that his only stipulation for Bambinelli joining Mizzou was that his family, which apparently owns a pizza restaurant, had to ship one up every month. So, yeah, I guess Brian Smith loves pizza, and he also has a book coming out called Tigerstyle. And so that will be launched on Monday. It's going to be the book launch. It's going to be at the Columns Club. And
he does not really want to promote it, it sounds like, because
it is wrestling season. He is fully in on wrestling season.
Yeah.
Said he did not give a dang, is how I will put it, about the book because it was wrestling season, and said he's actually handed over his Twitter account briefly to his daughter, who does some form of like marketing in New York, I think. So no, it is always an entertaining time whenever you get to interview Brian Smith, because, you know, he is a straight shooter and will tell it like it is. And usually there's something entertaining. Like I said, I think he was asked about NIL and said that he's got about 10 cartons of Keegan O'Toole's ice cream in his freezer, because I guess his wife, you know, has him save them for like if Keegan's family is in town or something, so we can give it away to people, something like that. So yeah, pizza, ice cream, and books were the main takeaways from Brian Smith. Who
was there coffee too?
Coffee. Yeah, Noah Certain has the gooey butter cake coffee. Things that I would not put together.
Yeah,
sounds oddly intriguing, but probably doesn't work.
Yeah, the other thing I really liked that he said was when he was talking about the schedule, and he's like, I gotta talk to the person who made up this schedule. It's so hard. And he's like, it was me. Because they really do. There's like no rest for them at all.
No, not at all.
It's pretty crazy.
One thing I will note in addition, for the wrestling fans out there, even some of the more casual folks who follow wrestling a bit, big news yesterday, Gable Stevenson, the two-time national champion and Olympic gold medalist in Tokyo, is returning to college wrestling after 2 years away from the sport. It sounds like he is going to be competing for the Golden Gophers by the end of the month. And the reason that this is relevant is because Minnesota and Mizzou will both be at the Cougar Clash on December 7th. So it does appear likely that Seth Nitzel may face Gable Stevenson, which is going to be pretty entertaining to see a former Olympic gold medalist in action.
Against poor Seth.
Yeah, that will likely not be the best match to watch if you're a very big Mizzou wrestling fan. Probably not going to go Nitzel's way. That's no knock against him.
I guess,
Stevenson
yeah.
is immediately the national title favorite upon returning. And there are only one or two guys who I can see having even a remote chance of beating him. So that's how it is.
He pulled a real Helen Hu.
He did after 2 years away from the sport.
Yeah.
2 years, not just 1, 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Matthew. And that will take us into our last little segment here for out of season sports. So Shannon Welker, Shannon Welker and grad student Kira Burns joined for the mega media session today. And got some updates. So if people are available Saturday, 10 a.m., Tiger Performance Center, doors open at 9:45. Donuts for the first 100 people, apparently. That's exciting. I am trying to figure out if people haven't been there before. It's a large facility, but it is, there's mats everywhere, trampolines, apparatuses. Is that even a word? Apparati.
Probably apparatuses with an E.
Apparatuses. Anyway, there's like equipment everywhere. And so I'm not sure where, I know they're advertising this. I'm not sure where all these people would fit if they get like a good sized crowd, but I do hope that people will come out to see it because Helen Hu's first performance back as a Tiger will occur this weekend. She has, with compliance, she is allowed to come back twice a month. And this is one of her visits. So people will be able to watch Helen on Beam this weekend. I asked about floor routines because at the last intrasquad, they hadn't quite built up their endurance yet, I'd say, to be able to really do full routines if they do 3 tumbling passes, because it's hard on your body. Shannon did say that they will be doing full floor routines, so that's awesome. He said they may, for the ones that are a little more difficult, they may pull one of the bigger, fluffier mats out, so it kind of ease the landing a little bit. As for how the events will go, he said they will go 7 deep on each side, so we'll see 14 total gymnasts on each apparatus, which seems like so many. But also, because of time constraints, that still, he said, is going to take some people out from actually being able to compete. So he mentioned that he had to send some emails just today to say that, hey, you may not get to do all of this stuff because of time. They can't be there forever. But I still think with going 7 deep on each side, I still think that we'll get to see a good amount of people, I believe. He said, and he's mentioned this before. I don't know why I'm coughing now. I went the whole episode without coughing. Crazy. Hold on a second. Let me have some soda. I'm sure that'll help. He did say, I think we'll probably see a good amount of the freshmen this weekend. But as for once competitions start, because they have such depth on the team, the freshmen can be kind of eased in. He said at the press conference today, kind of like on a football team or soccer, whatever team you're competing on, freshmen need a little bit of time to acclimate typically. So he does think that we will see, oh my God, I'm so sorry. He does think that we will see freshmen compete this season, but because they have so much depth, they do have a bit of time to develop. What else? Let's see. He really thinks that with the maturity and talent that the team has, that they will be finishing perhaps better than they ever have and make a return to Fort Worth, which is where Nationals is. They're really going for that. That is a goal of theirs. Something interesting, like how Dawn Sullivan had mentioned that she had had some contact with Michael Vernon when she went in the portal the first time. Shanna mentioned that actually three of the 4 transfers that Mizzou brought in, Shannon had actually previously recruited. So he had a built-in relationship with them already. So that was pretty cool. He also did flat out say Amari is doing the all around, which is awesome. But I did think it was interesting that perhaps the days of having so many people do all around is over, because they do have such good depth that it's hard to make it into that top 6 in every single event each week. And the athlete that came on was Kira Burns. And I asked her what events we should expect to see from her. And bars, of course, she's been the lead off on bars for the past couple of years. She has a beautiful bars routine. She also said we should expect to see her in vault, which last year she was kind of like the secret weapon, I feel like. She did vault once. She does deal with plantar fasciitis. At least in the past, maybe it's better now. So Shannon said he kind of held her out of it, depending upon if that was flaring up or not. But she did vault at least once last season, got a 9.9. So even if she is not doing a 10.0 start value vault, the fact that she can come in and throw a 9.9, pretty awesome. And then she did, surprise, say that she is also working on beam, which we have not seen her compete, at least not since I've been covering the team. She did say that it's been a bit of a slower progression there, but super excited about gymnastics. So Saturday, 10 a.m. And they're going to do a media availability afterwards, Ryan told me. Also, if you haven't yet checked out my feature on Helen Hu, it took me a very long time to write. I'm very proud of it. You should read it. Even got a retweet from Mizzou Gymnastics once I reminded them that I had written this story. So maybe not exactly unprovoked engagement, but Ryan the SID did massively apologize to me for missing it. I'm like, oh, you're gonna promote Nate's stuff and not mine? Cool. Real cool, Ryan. He's like, I'm sorry. And then, okay, Matt, I know we're over, but Matthew, real quick, baseball schedule.
All right, baseball in 1 minute.
In 1 minute.
Games. They avoid Tennessee. They play A&M, the national runners-up. The schedule goes from February 14th to May 17th. They got a home-and-home with KU. They're playing Illinois and bragging rights in Sauget. They have 2 College World Series teams, 5 regional champions, 14 NCAA regional qualifiers on the schedule. Notable games, they start in Puerto Rico. They play UConn there. They play Evansville in a matchup in non-con. They play LSU and Florida on the road. They host Texas and Oklahoma alongside Mississippi State. They also play Alabama on the road. They're guaranteed this year to make the SEC tournament because the SEC now is 16 teams. They've expanded it to include everybody. It's going to be played at the Hoover Met. It's going to be a single elimination format.
Damn. That was fast.
60 seconds to me.
Nice job, Matthew. That was fantastic. The other thing we didn't even talk about today was signing day. Softball signed like 5 million people. The funny thing was I said something to Eric about it, and he's like, yeah, 3 of them signed before 8:00 this morning. I was like, oh, you had to work early this morning, huh? He was like, yeah. So they signed like 6 bazillion people. Wrestling signed, I don't know how many people, Matthew?
Top 5 class in the country.
Well,
and somebody that pins people in 30 seconds, I know Coach said. So that seems good. I don't know if I didn't see an announcement for women's basketball, but they did get a commit over the weekend, their first one for 2025.
It was very much delayed, but they got their first commits. Actually, a really big prospect. She is the number 5 ranked player in the state of Illinois.
Underrated high school women's basketball state, by the way. Just want to put that.
Nikki Kirstein. Actually, it's kind of funny. Her older sister plays at Vermont. Can't escape the Catamounts. Yeah. Really highly rated prospect. Still hasn't signed yet, but is verbally committed. I believe she was called a 3-star. Another good building block piece for this team moving forward, especially one that the point guard position we've already said is up in the air. Talking just a little bit about women's soccer, they entered the day with 7 verbal commits. Currently, 4 of them have been confirmed by the Mizzou Soccer Twitter. The other 3 I checked on still all have Mizzou in their bio, still have commits. Just got to wait for those graphics to come out, I would assume.
Yeah, swimming had a couple. It was kind of funny during that press conference because somebody asked Coach Smith about the recruits, and he was like asking Jessica, the SID, like, did that one sign yet? Can I talk about that one? And gymnastics had 4 signees, including 5-star Kamara Equals. Swim and dive also had a bunch, some state champions in there. So that was pretty cool. Last thing we'll close with, because we did talk about this thing that all of the coaches were talking about, going to go watch volleyball.
Before I start, I'd like to just give a shout out to our volleyball program. It just broke the national rankings this week. What an unbelievable job that Don Sullivan has done with this program.
Volleyball has an important game.
Well, if you're going to write about anything, let's write about getting out a big crowd to their game this weekend and making sure we're supporting them.
They've got a big match Friday versus number 21 Florida, and would encourage any fans that are around to be at the Hearnes Center at 7 p.m. on Friday night to watch just an exciting volleyball team.
We're currently on a 9-game winning streak, and it's very important as fans, as students, that we go out and help them raise a banner. It's our banner, and we got to be in those stands to help them through it all.
Love to see it. Love to see it. I think it's really cool. And I just love, especially with Dennis Gates, like he is always out there supporting. If they are not on the road, he is at whatever game possible. He was at the women's game last night. I saw CY later too. He was there along with some of the team members. Dennis will be out there supporting the team. So I think that's really awesome. So everybody go to volleyball. Please. Thank you. Get a Hawaiian shirt. Dylan would show us what it looked like, except for apparently he lost his.
It's currently not at my disposal. It's around. But who knows? Maybe they made a new one. You never know. You'll have to check it out for yourself.
Maybe.
Now, see, I didn't spoil the surprise.
That's true. So, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Please head to rockmnation.com. Check out all the work from our wonderful student writers and so many other writers. I took the weekend off because my parents were in town, so I don't know how many articles we wrote. It was a lot. I didn't even read all of them. Whoops. Sorry, I was busy with mom and dad. So yeah, go to Rock M Nation, read all the articles. Things have been lively over there on Rock M Plus. I highly recommend that people go sign up for that. It's just $5 a month. We have some special podcasts that get released first to Rock M Plus subscribers, like Matt Watkins' The Verdict, which was in written form last year, as well as the Mo Show, where Chad just interviewed Laird Beach. So I encourage you to subscribe to RockM.Plus. And I think that's all from us. This was a very long episode, but you know what? We had a lot to say. A lot of sports to cover. A lot of good going on. Mizzou athletics. Some
also
not so
a lot
good.
of bad, which not a lot of bad, but some bad.
Good.
Some bad.
November's just a busy
A
month.
limited amount of bad, which we spent a lot of time talking about. Mizzou wins basketball.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
just
Some
so many,
guy caught my throat there.
there's so many sports in November. Like, it's just the crossover of fall.
I know, it's really crazy.
By the time we hit December, January, we'll be back under 75 minutes, preferably under 60. So
All right.
I know. I, of course, told Abigail, Abigail, I think this is going to be a short one.
Is it time to mess up the MIZ call and response?
I don't think we can.
Oh,
There's two of us.
yeah. Here we go. MIZ.
ZOU.
We'll try and do better next time. I won't be so thrown off by the beginning part with the Rock M logo being attached to the beginning when it's never happened before. Didn't know what was going on there. I don't know. Levi's
I like
weird
it.
stuff.
I like it.
I like it. I wish she had warned me that was going to happen. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. See you next time. Don't know when that is. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.